Welcome to today's Just the Truth episode. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. It was Governor Ron DeSantis' turn yesterday. Nikki Haley, you may recall, was featured on Monday's Fox News Townhall for the upcoming Iowa caucuses. Again, I'll be there next week reporting directly to you. Plan to join me each day. You can hear me on the Mike Gallagher Show. If you haven't downloaded the Mike Gallagher Show app already, please do so. Just search for Mike Gallagher or go to mikeonline.com. You can also go to my website as well, joeyhudson.com. But I'll be there in Iowa to tell you all the latest on the caucuses next week. DeSantis had his turn with Fox News. President Donald Trump will have his turn later today. We're going to have the highlights for you of DeSantis' session yesterday. Remember how we were told by the Biden White House that none of the buyers of Hunter Biden's crazy paintings were known by the Biden family? Not true, says the Manhattan art dealer, who yesterday said that he never worked with the White House on an ethics pact to ensure that buyers would remain anonymous, like we were told, and added that the top purchasers were known to Hunter Biden, contrary to prior claims from President Biden's aides. This just keeps getting worse. Dr. Anthony Fauci, one of the top public health officials in the U.S. during the COVID-19 pandemic, told House lawmakers this week that he was not convinced that children suffered learning loss due to school closures his agency supported. We got the details on that for you, too. And speaking of children, allowing very young children to access televisions and other screens could lead to sensory challenges for them later in childhood, according to a new study from Drexel University in Pennsylvania. Listen up, parents, grandparents. I've got the details for you there. And former First Lady Melania Trump announced the passing of her mother yesterday. I'll give you those details as well.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
Your story was powerful when you delivered it up at the General Assembly. People are still talking about your story.
The CON has gone away in the state of South Carolina, and I want to personally thank you.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start with Governor Ron DeSantis. It was his turn yesterday. Remember, again, Nikki Haley was Monday. President Donald Trump will be this afternoon. DeSantis said that he will bring major accountability to weaponized government organizations if he's elected president, saying that agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, he named the Internal Revenue Service, and the Department of Justice are weaponized against Americans. We know that, don't we? The Florida governor said that Americans will see accountability in how they operate starting on day one of a DeSantis administration.
Yes.
Okay, what's your question for Governor DeSantis?
Governor DeSantis, thanks for coming out today, and you have earned my vote Monday.
Thank you.
So, the left has weaponized the FBI, DOJ, and the IRS against their political enemies, including President Trump. When you're president, will there be a reckoning for this abuse of power?
Scott, thank you for the question. It's an easy answer. Yes. And we're going to do it on day one. We're going to be ready to go because here's the thing. Those agencies have become weaponized. I mean, you look at what they've done. I mean, I first saw it when I first ran for Congress. I had groups in my district where the IRS was targeting those conservative groups back there in 2012. And it's like a small nonprofit that's just talking about the Constitution. Under Obama, they did it. No one was held accountable for doing that. Then you had the Russia collusion where they went after President Trump. False theory about stealing the 2016 election. They kneecapped him any way they could. Nobody was held accountable for that. So you're going to keep getting these outcomes until you have a president that comes in and drops the hammer. Our founding fathers understood that if power is allowed to accumulate, human nature being what it is going to be abused. They assume that the elected president would not let it happen. Honestly, they also assume that Congress would use its power of the purse to rein in these rogue agencies, and Congress doesn't do that. They put the government on autopilot with these continuing resolutions and these omnibus bills, so they have defaulted on their responsibility to do it in Congress. But I will do it as president. And what does that look like? On day one, you'll have a new director of the FBI. You're going to have new people in the Department of Justice. I'm going to take parts of those agencies. I'm going to move them out of D.C. I disagree with Donald Trump, wants to build a massive new FBI headquarters over $1 billion in Washington, D.C. That doesn't drain the swamp. That deepens the swamp. I'm taking that out of Washington, D.C. We're going to take power out of there. But here's the thing. Those are not independent agencies. There's a canard in Washington, the Beltway press will say, oh, the president can't be involved in the Department of Justice. That's politicizing it. No, if they're independent of who the elected president is, that means they're unaccountable. You don't want unaccountable power for people who can put you in jail and people that have guns. They need to be held accountable. So if an FBI agent is going after parents going to school board meeting, I'm firing those people. If the FBI is colluding with big tech to censor dissent in this country, I'm firing those people. If the FBI is passing around memos saying observant Catholics are potential terrorists, I'm firing those people. So there's going to be a reckoning, and not just for those agencies. There's going to be a reckoning for the agencies that plunged this country into lockdown during COVID. Anthony Fauci, CDC, NIH, all those agencies, FDA, you're going to see major accountability, because if we want to change the way this government operates, you've got to hold the people accountable who are responsible for the madness, and I will do that.
Also, DeSantis declared that we can never send American troops over to fight in Ukraine. He blasted Nikki Haley for her recent comments suggesting that New Hampshire voters correct the electoral process started by Iowa next week, as well as the former South Carolina governor's stance on Ukraine. DeSantis said, we have a lot of challenges in national security, one of our own southern border, he said, and you have people like Nikki Haley who care more about the Ukraine border than she does about our own border here in the United States. DeSantis noted that China is America's #1 threat, he said, and cited his military service while calling for more naval power in the Indo-Pacific to be able to deter China's ambitions. The Florida governor said that if he could, he would snap his finger and give all that territory back to Ukraine, and that Russia had no right to invade the country. He also said that America's European allies are not pulling their fair share in supporting Ukraine. DeSantis vowed that under his administration, that the U.S. military would follow rules of engagement on the southern border and would shoot cartel members attempting to breach the sovereign U.S. territory. He said that cartels had killed way more people in the U.S. than any terrorist group combined when accounting for fentanyl deaths, and vowed that he would be the president to solve the problem once and for all. He also said that he would send troops into Mexico to kill cartel members, among other assets. He said that he will not allow sanctuary states and will not allow the continued invasion at the southern border. He was asked a question by another audience member of the Fox Townhall.
Denise Best, are you out there? Hi, Denise.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So you said that you're leaning towards former President Trump. Is that still true, or how are you feeling tonight?
I thought I was, but I've heard a lot of good stuff tonight, so we'll see.
Okay. What's your question for the governor?
My question is, you answered partially with my fellow Iowan here, but with the millions and millions of immigrants that have been led across the country, into the country in the past 3 years, will you go about trying to find and deport them? And how will you go about that? How are you going to find that many people and deport them?
Well, Denise, I think that's a great question, and thanks for coming tonight. Yes, you have to. Now, there's a variety of different tools that you have. I mean, some folks you actually have information on. Other folks that are newly arrived, they may still be close to the border. You got to dedicate resources. The other thing, though, you have to do is you have to look at states and localities in this country that are frustrating our ability to enforce immigration laws. I'm not going to allow sanctuary cities in this country. I'm not going to allow sanctuary states. You look at a place like California, it's a sanctuary state. They don't enforce the law. They issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens. They're incentivizing people to come illegally. And then guess what? They will tax you to pay health insurance benefits for people in this country illegally. You can't reward people coming to this country illegally. And so if they're doing stuff like that, we're going to hit them with the power of the purse. We're going to take away grants. We're not going to be able to just sit there and do that. So there's a variety of tools that we're going to use, but we've got to do it, because if you don't do that, then you can build the wall, you can do all this. You're still going to have issues. And here's the thing with Florida that I can tell you. People say, oh, you're not a border state. Well, I'm a maritime state. We will have boats go from Haiti and Cuba to try to come to Florida illegally. Now, that's the Coast Guard's responsibility. They don't have enough boats out there. So some of these go fast boats were getting through. So I declared an emergency. I marshaled state resources, maritime resources, to fill in the gaps. So boat comes from Haiti, our guys would interdict. We turn the Haitians over to the Coast Guard. Then they deport them back to Haiti. Guess what? Once that was happening regularly, the number of boats trying to come to Florida declined dramatically. Why? Why would you want to go across choppy water if you know the likely result is you're just going to end up back where you started from? Same principle applies to the southern border. Why do you want to spend thousands of dollars to pay a coyote or to pay the cartels to get into the United States if, as soon as you're caught illegally, you go back to your home country? People are not going to want to do it. They're willing to do it. They're willing to pay that money because they know if they just get across that border illegally, they get a sheet of paper to say, stay here for 4 or 5 years and come back for a court date then. Give me a break. It's absurd. I'm going to do something about it.
And finally, he said that he's looking for ways to keep President Biden off the ballot due to the invasion of the 8 million people who've come across our southern border, though he said that he also believes efforts to bar former President Trump from the ballot are wrong. In his statement, he said, I can tell you I would love to run against Biden. I'm not going to let him hang out in his basement. We'd run him ragged around this country. I'd love to be able to be in a debate with Biden and be able to hold him accountable for his policies. He said, I do think the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have to take the case, which they are. We know that. He said, I do think they're going to have to rein this in because I just think if you look at it, it just becomes too different. DeSantis said in the meantime that Florida is looking at whether it could block Biden from their ballot for policies that have led to what he called the invasion of illegals into the U.S. from the southern border. He said you can make a case. We're actually looking at this in Florida now. Could we make a credible case that Biden, because of the invasion of 8 million, that we could keep him off of the ballot? 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. I welcome your comments on the Furman Ford text line. You can also leave me a quick voice message, and your emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. As you can imagine, Governor DeSantis' rivals in the 2024 Republican presidential nomination took aim at him after his town hall yesterday. Former President Trump's campaign went off during the town hall event, attacking DeSantis' record on COVID-19 pandemic and claiming in one post that the Florida governor, quote, issued some of the most draconian COVID restrictions of anywhere in the United States. In another post, the Trump campaign wrote, Ron DeSantis praises Trump's COVID task force, says Fauci and Birx were doing a good job, with a clip of DeSantis during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Trump campaign tweeted, Ron DeSantis and his allies have set him up for devastating failure. Everything he does is one giant astroturf that will be exposed in just a few short days. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley's campaign also weighed in on DeSantis during his town hall, slamming the governor over his answers to various questions, from inflation to his polling numbers against Joe Biden. Haley's campaign tweeted, Ron DeSantis on inflation. This was created by Washington. Ron, you were in Washington and you voted to increase the debt limit. 864-477-JOEY. 864-477-5639 is the Furman Ford text line. I welcome your comments. Speaking of Furman Ford, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses like Furman Ford. It's owned by people right here in the upstate. Just take a look around. Corporations have never been more powerful. New technologies like AI are changing the game even more. That's why you need to support businesses that are actually built and run by people here in our community. Businesses like Furman Ford. When it comes to getting your next vehicle, I choose Furman Ford in Lawrence, and I hope you will too. They do business the right way. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line. That means when you step into the showroom, or you give them a call, or maybe you send them an email, you're going to always have access to a member of the Furman family, like Jim Furman or Matthew Furman. They'll help you navigate some of the great deals they have on their great selection of pre-owned vehicles. And what's even better, when you drive your new vehicle off the lot, you know that your money is staying right here and supporting a community here in the upstate. Find them online at FurmanFord.com. Again, that's FurmanFord.com. So, big revelation. You know, here on Just the Truth, we talk about the truth and drilling in and drilling down to the truth. Well, we have a truthism today that this actually shocked me. It doesn't surprise me, and I've felt that it was a little suspicious all along, but I never dreamed that the White House would go along with this ruse. And I'm talking about Hunter Biden's art dealer and some of his art deal. First off, I can't imagine any of Hunter Biden's paintings being worth the hundreds of thousands of dollars that some of these people have paid. You knew that was suspect from the beginning, didn't you? Hunter Biden's Manhattan art dealer yesterday admitted that he never worked with the White House on an ethics pact to ensure that the buyers would remain anonymous, and added that the top purchasers were in fact known by Hunter Biden. This is very much contrary to the claims from President Biden's White House. George Burgess also revealed that in addition to the lack of supposed anti-corruption safeguards, he actually met and spoke on the phone with the president while repping his son. This coming from the House Oversight Committee in a readout of a closed-door deposition. The art dealer testified that Hunter Biden, who knew about 70% of his art, including Elizabeth Hearst Natali, who obtained works by the first son both before and after scoring a prestigious presidential appointment. It never changes, does it? The Biden family is a pay-to-play corporation. Burgess disclosed that he personally interacted with Joe Biden on multiple occasions, including at a close to the press White House wedding for Hunter's daughter Naomi in 2022. The testimony came as the Oversight Committee spearheads this impeachment inquiry into whether Joe Biden was corruptly involved with his son and brother James, his foreign ventures while vice president. Hearst Natali, who scored repeated visits to the White House during the time frame in question, signed a $42,000 sale in February 2021 before her appointment that July by Joe Biden to the Commission for Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. Then another $52,000 in December of 2022. So this person has spent, what is that? Do the math. $94,000 on art by Hunter Biden. And again, just like with the energy companies that he consulted with and was paid millions of dollars for and knows nothing about energy, Hunter Biden is not an artist. Burgess also confirmed that the first son was aware that Hollywood lawyer Kevin Morris, who met Hunter at a political fundraiser in December of 2019 before, and this Morris is considered his sugar brother because he paid millions of dollars of of Hunter's taxes to keep him out of jail and has been paying some of his living expenses so that he can live the way he has. This guy bought art worth $875,000 in a January 2023 deal. This was just a year ago. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, in a statement, said the Biden White House appears to have deceived the American people about facilitating an ethics agreement governing the sale of Hunter's art. Hunter Biden's gallerist never had any communication with the White House about such an agreement to make sure there was any sort of ethics compliance at all, and he provided information to the committee revealing how Hunter Biden's amateur art career is an ethics nightmare. He went on to say the vast majority of Hunter Biden's art has been purchased by Democrat donors, surprise, surprise, one of whom was appointed by President Biden to this prestigious commission after she purchased art from Hunter. Tens of thousands of dollars shortly before Joe Biden's inauguration. The White House has a lot of explaining to do about misleading the American people, the Oversight Committee says. The White House did not immediately offer comment on the testimony. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre referred questions to the White House counsel's office during her regular briefing yesterday. It was not immediately clear if Burgess comprehensively provided buyer information after previously refusing to do so. We will see. Burgess also told committee members during this closed-door deposition that Hollywood producer Lynette Phillips, who has hosted fundraisers for Joe Biden, introduced Hunter to Burgess. Hunter Biden has sold at least $1.3 million in art as of this past July, according to Business Insider. The Post previously reported that Hunter had sold 5 prints for $75,000 each, totaling $375,000 at an October 2021 Hollywood art show that controversially was attended by then L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti, President Biden's then nominee to be ambassador to India. This whole Biden the Biden family corruption is just amazing. And that Democrats still just look the other way. A lot of Americans look the other way. The existence of this ethics arrangement through which Hunter Biden would remain in the dark about buyer information. It was first reported in the summer of 2021 by the Washington Post, and the framework was cited repeatedly by then White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. How many times have we heard that Hunter would never know who bought his art? The Washington Post, citing 2 Biden aides, wrote, White House officials have helped craft an agreement under which purchases of Hunter Biden's artwork, which could be listed at prices as high as $500,000, will be kept confidential from even the artist himself, meaning Hunter, in an attempt to avoid ethical issues that could arise as a presidential family member tries to sell a product with a highly subjective value. Look, we know that those pieces of art would have no value if I had painted them or anyone else had painted them other than Hunter Biden, because, again, it gets back to the Biden pay-to-play game. Jen Psaki did not dispute the article at the time when at the briefing the following day when this was brought up. A reporter said, did the White House play any role in crafting the sales agreement with the New York Gallery to protect the purchasers or the ultimate purchaser's identity? The then White House spokesperson replied, quote, a system has been established that allows for Hunter Biden to work in his profession. And that's a joke in itself, because Hunter Biden, I don't think you could say that art is his profession. Anyway, she said that will allow him to work within reasonable safeguards. All interactions regarding the selling of art and the setting of prices will be handled by a professional gallerist adhering to the highest industry standards, she said. And any offer out of the normal course would be rejected out of hand. And the gallerist will not share information about buyers or prospective buyers, including their identities, with Hunter Biden or the administration. Now, what went wrong with that? We didn't believe it at the time anyway, did we? Weeks later, Psaki did put a little distance between the administration and this so-called agreement. She said, we've spoken extensively to the arrangement, which are not White House arrangements. They're arrangements between Hunter Biden's representatives and ones that we certainly were made aware of, she said a couple of months later in August of 2021. Hirsch Natali has denied that she purchased Hunter's art to curry favor with his dad, saying in a November statement that any insinuation that her purchase of art was unusual or somehow improper was false. Yeah, sure. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You buying this any more than maybe you bought it a year or so ago? Do you buy the idea that Hunter Biden's art? Have you seen some of it? First off, I need to post some of those. There were some pictures that have been distributed. I should try to find those and put them either on my website, joeyhudson.com, or maybe share them on Facebook. Send me your comments. If you're buying this, I'd love to hear from you on the Furman Ford text line. You can also leave a quick voice message, emails directly to me, joey@joeyhudson.com. So Dr. Anthony Fauci, one of the top public health officials in the U.S. during the COVID-19 pandemic, told House lawmakers this week, and they've been busy in Washington, the House Oversight Committee, told them that he was not convinced that children suffered learning loss due to school closures that his agency supported. The latest from Dr. Fauci in just a minute. First, let me talk with you about how you can get healthy in 2024 and lose the weight for the last time. I've been sharing with you my journey for several years now. I first met Dr. Ashley Lucas with PhD weight loss and nutrition in the summer over 3 years ago. I started the program right after 4th of July. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly by November, late November, heading into the Christmas holidays. I had lost 30 pounds. And the good news is, folks, unlike some diets and fad diets that I have done in the past, I have not gained a single pound back. I've been able to maintain that 30-pound weight loss for over 3 years now, and I feel better. You will too. Let me encourage you to make that call, 864-252-4925. The great thing about this podcast, you can hit pause right now and back it up and get this again, 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. Get healthy once and for all in 2024. Lose that excess weight that you're carrying so dangerously around your waist and say hello to a new focus. You'll sleep better. You'll have more energy. You're going to feel better about yourself. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. So the former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is known as, I guess, NIAID. Fauci, who was the director, made an admission on the second and final day of his 14-hour closed-door interview with House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, according to two of its members. Representative Michael Cloud, Republican from Texas. He sits on the panel. He told the New York Post, he says he's still not convinced that there was any learning loss, that in his view, that's still really open for discussion. He said, I think if you ask any parent, they'll tell you it was a major hit on their child's development. A member of former President Donald Trump's White House coronavirus task force. He was chief medical advisor to President Biden before his retirement at the end of 2022, one of the most highly paid federal officials in our government, making well over $400,000. Fauci said, show me a school that I shut down and show me a factory that I shut down. I never did, he said. He said this to New York Times Magazine in April of last year when he is asked about his support for the heavy-handed policies. He said, I gave a public health recommendation that echoed the CDC's recommendation, and people made a decision based on that, he said. But I never criticized the people who had to make the decisions one way or the other. Now, do you remember it this way? Do you remember that Fauci was just simply making the statements, and then some of these companies, some of these schools, some of these states closed down on their own just based on his information? Representative Cloud said Fauci had showed an amazing ability to either forget what had happened or then to find ways to shirk any sort of responsibility for the influence that was had. Cloud added, they washed their hands of any sort of responsibility, saying, oh, those decisions were made by school districts, but the school districts know if you don't follow the guidance that's coming out of the federal government, you open yourself up to lawsuits. The U.S. Department of Education released statistics in September of 2022 showing reading scores among 9-year-olds had plummeted over the course of the pandemic to their lowest point in 30 years, while math scores fell for the first time ever in a half century of tracking. Tensions also flared over Fauci's refusal to discuss his role in funding gain of function. That's been a big discussion with him over the last few years. And just what role the Wuhan, China lab had. Representative Nicole Malatakis from New York said, I think he's playing semantics with the term, and I think it's clear that the Wuhan lab was conducting gain-of-function research. Representative Morgan Griffin, a Republican from Virginia, on the panel also said they were working out what the different definitions were, which is why even when this was going on, you had one definition on the NIH website, and yet Fauci was operating under a different definition. Griffith added that he believed Fauci's previous congressional testimony was truthful because there were different types of gain of function, and this was clarified. Flanked by Capitol Police and his attorneys, Fauci declined to talk to reporters as he entered the hearing room yesterday morning after claiming the previous day upon questions that he did not recall a specific situation over 100 times to the committee. Fauci's memory must be failing him after retirement. House COVID Select Subcommittee Chairman Brad Winstrup from Ohio told reporters that determining whether the SARS-CoV-2 leaked from a lab or jumped naturally from animals to humans remained top of the mind for himself and other panel members, and that Fauci had expressed an open mind to both theories. House COVID Subcommittee Ranking Member Raul Ruiz, the Democrat from California, ducked out of the hearing room through a back entrance to avoid speaking to the press, but he later released a statement denouncing Republicans' efforts as a politically driven fishing expedition. He did not attend any portion of the hearing on Monday, but Representative Debbie Dingell, the Democrat from Michigan, another panel member, told reporters that the transcribed interview had been, quote, helping us get the facts and the details. The Energy Department and the FBI have both determined that a lab leak was the most likely explanation for COVID-19, whereas other intelligence agencies like the CIA were unable to reach a consensus. Internal government records and Fauci's personal emails show that he was actually aware of potentially dangerous experiments on the SARS-like viruses back in 2014 through 2019. This and backed a subgrant from the National Institutes of Health to the Manhattan-based EcoHealth Alliance, who in turn passed it on to the Wuhan Chinese lab. In a February 1st, 2020 email, Fauci expressed alarm that researchers at Wuhan University, which had also received U.S. grant money, were known to have been working on gain-of-function experiments to determine that molecular mechanisms associated with bat viruses adapting to human infections. Fauci told the committee that he should not have stated that as a fact in his email, that gain-of-function experiments were in fact being conducted in Wuhan. Documents obtained by the House COVID panel have also revealed that Fauci's National Institutes of Health worked around a government-wide pause on gain-of-function research during this period, the 2014 to 2017, to greenlight experiments in Wuhan. Last September, the Department of Health and Human Services barred the Wuhan Institute of Virology from receiving any further U.S. funding. On the Furman Ford text line, some of you, I love to get the comments. Christy said, I think the Democrats would love, capital LOVE, for Haley to be the front runner. They probably have supported her cause financially greatly. I will never vote for her. Who knows how long she would stay and then decide to quit. She finishes nothing. Faye writes, Joey, your podcasts are always great, but today's, Tuesday's, was excellent! Exclamation. Thank you, Faye. She said it was so informative. I appreciate that. And Faye, I hope if you're listening today that you have forwarded Just the Truth to some of your friends, because that's how we grow our little community here. So if you like what you hear, send it on to a friend or two or three or four. Post it on Facebook or X or whatever social media you might be on. That's how we continue to grow the audience. Susan writes on the Furman Ford text line, and she has diagnosed Nikki Haley, saying that she has hoof and mouth disease. She's always putting her hoof in her mouth. Pete says it doesn't take much to do Secretary Austin's job. This is in response to the story that we learned where the defense secretary had been hospitalized for days without telling his boss, the president, and even some of his other folks in the Defense Department. Pete says he sits around picking his nose and spouting drivel about DEI. A 2-year-old could do it and save us taxpayers a bunch. And our text of encouragement today, pain will leave you when you let it go. God bless. Thank you for that. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. Leave me a quick voice message or send me an email, joey@joeyhudson.com. Listen up, parents, grandparents. Allowing very young children to access televisions and other screens could lead to sensory challenges for them later in childhood, according to a new study from Drexel University in Pennsylvania. Portions of the Day Show brought to you by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff who have absolutely no appliance knowledge? Are you tired of going into the big shiny box stores and asking them about a refrigerator that they know nothing about? Well, you're not going to get that when you go to my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. You can't afford to buy the wrong appliance. They're too expensive to do that. That's why I recommend shopping at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, nearly perfect reviews on Google, and the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're going to walk you through their 11,000-plus square foot warehouse that's packed slam full of appliances just waiting for you, and they'll help you find the right solution. They have an award-winning service department. They have extended warranties and expert installation to help you with this. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So this study, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, anybody who has a young child in your home or that you help take care of. This study, Early Life Digital Media Experiences and Development of Atypical Sensory Processing, was published on January the 8th in the JAMA Pediatrics. According to Karen Heffler, she's a medical doctor, associate professor of psychiatry at Drexel University. The study finds an association between greater screen time in the first 2 years of life and a high sensory-related behavior in areas as the child gets older. To arrive at the findings, the research team analyzed data on TV or DVD watching among 1,471 babies and toddlers at 12 months of age, 18 months, and again at 24 months. The data came from the National Children's Study, a long-term look at U.S. children and their parents designed to study environmental influences on child health and development, according to the National Institute of Health. The behavioral differences include sensory seeking, sensory avoiding, sensory sensitivity, and low registration, Heffler said. A child who is sensory seeking may be attracted to spinning or shining objects, whereas a child with low registration would typically avoid eye contact and may not respond in a timely manner to being called or to familiar voices, according to Dr. Heffler. The study also found that children experience different atypical behaviors depending on when they were exposed to screens. She noted, although screen time of the children at each of the ages studied was found to be associated with atypical sensory processing at 33 months of age, the types of atypical sensory processing differed by the age of exposure. Children exposed to any amount of screen time at the age of 12 months were found to have a 105% greater likelihood of exhibiting high sensory behaviors, according to the press release. At 18 months old, each additional hour of daily screen time for children was associated with a 23% increased likelihood of, quote, high sensory behaviors, as well as later sensation avoiding and low registration. The study says atypical sensory processing is commonly seen in several behavioral health problems, including children with ADHD and up to 90% of children with autism. Screen exposure at 24 months was associated with sensation avoidance, sensory sensitivity, and sensation seeking, according to Dr. Heffler. Atypical sensory processing is commonly seen in several other health behaviors, including children with ADHD and 90% of children with autism. And autism is typically not diagnosed until a child reaches 2 years of age, according to experts. Prior to this study, there was little understanding of potential risk factors for atypical sensory processing, according to the study. While the American Academy of Pediatrics, based in Illinois, recommends that children avoid screen time altogether, aside from video chats with family members and friends, until they're at least 18 to 24 months, this study gives further evidence that screen time for the youngest children should be avoided, according to the study. Screen exposure among very young children had previously been linked to autism, ADHD, language delays, and other brain differences, according to Dr. Heffler. This study adds atypical sensory processing to the list of other developmental outcomes, she said. As she pointed out, infants do not have the capability to fully understand what they see on TV or video, but the lights, the colors, the sounds, and movement experienced during screen time would have an impact on how the neurons in the brain connect, potentially affecting sensory processing pathways and sensory-related behavior. The hope of researchers is that the study will add clinicians who are encountering young patients with sensory issues. Parents and clinicians who are seeing these types of behaviors may want to try eliminating screen time in favor of social interaction and play. So what's a healthy amount of daily screen time for kids? Per the website of the American Academy of Pediatrics, discourages any use of media for children younger than age 2. For kids ages 2 and older, the organization recommends capping screen time to at least 2 hours per day. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry outlines specific guidelines for each age group on its website. For babies up to 18 months, it recommends limiting screen time to video chatting with an adult. 18 to 24 months, its guidelines are to use screens only for educational programming. For kids 2 and 5 years old, the AACAP recommends a limit of 1 hour per weekday and 3 hours on weekends for any non-educational screen time. It does not specify hourly limits for ages 6 and older, but does recommend encouraging healthy habits and limiting screen-based activities. So parents, beware. Beware. Some sad news yesterday from former First Lady Melania Trump as she announced the passing of her mother, Amelia Noves. It is with deep sadness I announce the passing of my beloved mother, the former First Lady wrote on X. Trump called her mother strong and entirely devoted to her family. Amelia Noves was a strong woman who always carried herself with grace, warmth, and dignity. According to the Post, she was entirely devoted to her husband, daughters, grandson, and son-in-law. We will miss her beyond measure and continue to honor and love her legacy. The news comes after former President Donald Trump said that Noves was very ill at his New Year's Eve celebration at his home in South Florida. He said hopefully she'll be recovering. The former president said that after mentioning he had gotten off of the phone with Melania, who was at a Miami hospital with her sick mother. Trump continued, "It's a tough time, a very tough one." Similarly, Melania was absent from the family's Christmas celebrations as she took care of her ailing mother. Melania has always been very devoted to her entire family. A source close to the Trumps said it shouldn't be no surprise that she spent that Christmas with her ailing mother. Prayers for the Trump family for sure. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio to lose weight for the last time in 2024. Visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website. Go ahead and do it today. Do it right now, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Thanks for spending some of your time with me. Keep those comments coming on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep your emails coming as well. Joey at joeyhudson.com. We're back tomorrow. Hope you'll plan to join us then. Again, pass this on to one of your friends or several of your friends. Remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.